Welcome to English Learning Stories. On this channel, you improve your English by listening to real stories from history. Today, we will learn about Nelson Mandela, a man who fought against injustice, spent many years in prison, and became a symbol of freedom and peace around the world. Through his life story, you will learn English, history, and important lessons about courage, sacrifice, and forgiveness. So listen carefully, and let's begin. Nelson Mandela was born on July 18, 1918, in the small village of Mvezo in South Africa. He was born into the Thembu royal family, but his family lived a simple rural life. His father was a local chief and advisor to the king. After his father's death, Mandela was sent to live with the Thembu regent, who valued education. Mandela attended mission schools, where he was given the English name Nelson. He learned discipline, leadership, and the importance of education. Mandela later attended Fort Hare University, one of the few higher education institutions available to Black South Africans at the time. However, he was expelled for participating in a student protest. This experience marked his early resistance to injustice. He then moved to Johannesburg, where he worked while studying law. During this time, Mandela became aware of racial discrimination and the system of apartheid that controlled every aspect of Black South African life. In the 1940s, Nelson Mandela became deeply involved in political activism. While living in Johannesburg, he experienced the daily reality of racial discrimination under South Africa's system of apartheid, which enforced strict separation between races and denied basic rights to Black citizens. In 1944, Mandela joined the African National Congress, ANC, a political organization formed to oppose racial injustice. That same year, he helped establish the ANC Youth League, along with other young activists who believed the organization needed more direct and energetic action. The Youth League promoted ideas of African nationalism, self-confidence, and mass resistance. Mandela quickly emerged as a strong leader and speaker, known for his discipline and commitment to equality. During this period, Mandela completed his law studies and became one of South Africa's first Black lawyers. He opened a law firm with Oliver Tambo, providing legal help to Black South Africans who were often abused by discriminatory laws. Their office became a place of hope for people with no other access to justice. In 1948, the South African government officially strengthened apartheid laws, increasing restrictions on movement, education, employment, and political participation for non-white citizens. In response, the ANC organized peaceful protests, boycotts, and acts of civil disobedience. Mandela played a key role in the Defiance Campaign of 1952, which encouraged people to openly break unjust laws in a nonviolent way. The campaign gained international attention and significantly increased support for the ANC. As a result of his activism, Mandela was arrested, banned from attending public meetings, and closely monitored by the government. Despite this pressure, his commitment to justice only grew stronger. After the Defiance Campaign of 1952, Nelson Mandela became a major target of the South African government. He was repeatedly arrested and placed under banning orders, restricting his movement and speech. In 1956, Mandela and 155 other activists were arrested and charged with treason. The treason trial lasted several years. In 1961, Mandela and the other accused were acquitted, but the trial placed intense pressure on the anti-apartheid movement. In 1960, South African police killed 69 unarmed protesters during the Sharpeville massacre. Following this event, the government banned the ANC and declared a state of emergency. In response, Mandela concluded that peaceful protest alone was no longer effective. In 1961, he helped form Umkhonto we Sizwe, the armed wing of the ANC, which focused on sabotage of government infrastructure rather than attacks on civilians. Later that year, Mandela went underground to avoid arrest and continued organizing resistance. In 1962, Nelson Mandela was captured by South African authorities after living in hiding. He was charged with inciting strikes and leaving the country illegally. He was sentenced to 5 years in prison. In 1963, police discovered documents linking Mandela to underground resistance activities at Rivonia, near Johannesburg. This led to the Rivonia trial, where Mandela and other ANC leaders were charged with sabotage and attempting to overthrow the government. During the trial, Mandela delivered a historic statement explaining his opposition to apartheid and his commitment to equality. The speech later became one of the most important political statements of the 20th century. In 1964, Nelson Mandela was convicted and sentenced to life imprisonment. He was sent to Robben Island, beginning a long period of incarceration. After receiving a life sentence in 1964, Nelson Mandela was imprisoned on Robben Island, where he remained for many years under strict conditions. He was classified as a high-risk political prisoner and placed in a maximum security prison. During the early years of imprisonment, Mandela and other political prisoners were forced to perform hard labor. They were denied basic rights, including adequate medical care, personal visits, and access to education. Despite these conditions, Mandela maintained discipline and leadership among fellow prisoners. In the 1970s, international awareness of apartheid increased. Mandela became a global symbol of resistance, even while imprisoned. Governments, activists, and organizations around the world began calling for his release and for an end to apartheid. In 1982, Mandela was transferred from Robben Island to Pollsmoor Prison on the mainland. This move allowed the government to limit his influence among younger prisoners while keeping him under close control. Throughout the 1980s, internal resistance in South Africa intensified, and international economic and political pressure increased. Several countries imposed sanctions against the South African government. In 1985, Mandela was offered conditional release if he agreed to reject armed resistance. He refused the offer, stating that freedom could not be accepted while apartheid continued. In 1988, Mandela was moved again, this time to Victor Verster Prison, where he was held under less restrictive conditions. This transfer marked the beginning of secret negotiations between Mandela and the South African government. By the late 1980s, apartheid had become increasingly unsustainable. Mandela's continued imprisonment was viewed as a major obstacle to peace. On February 11, 1990, after 27 years in prison, Nelson Mandela was released, marking a turning point in South African history. After his release in 1990, Nelson Mandela became the central figure in negotiations to end apartheid. He worked with South African President F.W. de Klerk to dismantle the apartheid system and prevent civil war. In 1990, the government legalized the African National Congress, ANC, and lifted bans on other political organizations. Mandela was elected president of the ANC in 1991. Between 1991 and 1993, Mandela led negotiations aimed at creating a multiracial democracy. These talks included agreements on political reforms, the release of political prisoners, and the creation of a new constitution. In 1993, Mandela and de Klerk were jointly awarded the Nobel Peace Prize for their efforts to peacefully end apartheid. In 1994, South Africa held its first democratic elections, allowing citizens of all races to vote. The ANC won the election, and on May 10, 1994, Nelson Mandela was sworn in as President of South Africa, becoming the country's first black president. Nelson Mandela served as President of South Africa from 1994 to 1999. His presidency focused on national unity, reconciliation, and rebuilding a country divided by apartheid. One of his first major actions was forming a government of national unity, which included former political opponents. This helped stabilize the country during the transition to democracy. In 1995, Mandela supported the Truth and Reconciliation Commission, which investigated human rights abuses committed during apartheid. The commission aimed to promote healing rather than revenge. Mandela oversaw the adoption of a new democratic constitution in 1996, guaranteeing equal rights and freedoms for all South Africans. During his presidency, Mandela promoted racial reconciliation, economic development, and South Africa's return to the international community. In 1999, Mandela chose not to seek a second term, reinforcing democratic principles and a peaceful transfer of power. After leaving office in 1999, Nelson Mandela retired from active politics. He remained an international symbol of peace, reconciliation, and human rights. Mandela continued limited public work through charitable efforts, especially in areas related to education, HIV, AIDS awareness, and conflict resolution. In his later years, Mandela's public appearances became rare due to declining health. On December 5, 2013, Nelson Mandela died at the age of 95 in Johannesburg, South Africa. Following his death, world leaders and citizens across the globe honored him for his role in ending apartheid and promoting democracy through reconciliation rather than revenge. Nelson Mandela is remembered as one of the most important political leaders of the 20th century, whose life helped transform South Africa and inspired movements for justice worldwide. Nelson Mandela's life reminds us that real change takes time, courage, and sacrifice. From prison to presidency, his journey shows the power of forgiveness, leadership, and perseverance. Thank you for watching English Learning Stories. If you found this story helpful for learning English and understanding history, please like the video and subscribe to the channel. Keep listening, keep learning, and we'll see you in the next story.